may the source of all creation grant us wisdom and compassion for the decisions we are about to make tonight. So mote it be. Amen.
And honesty, amen.
Would the clerk please call roll?
Ackley,
Here.
Ambrose, Costanzo,
Here.
Locke, Lublin,
Here.
Osnick,
Here.
Robertson.
Okay, I would ask for a motion to excuse Councilmember Ambrose and Councilmember Locke in their absence from the city.
So move. Support.
Motion, support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And the city attorney is also out of town, so he won't be here tonight either. Request for agenda changes. I have one. I would like to move the mayor's report, item number 1, to be under audience participation, after audience participation.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I have a agenda request. Sitting on your desk is proposed resolution 2018-09. This is information that just became available to us.
Make that number 6 under new business.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who has anything? Moving on, I'd entertain a motion to approve the regular council meeting of December 19th, 2017. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Support? Is there any discussion?
Yes. When we discussed this at last month's meeting, there was a question about the audience participation, specifically Dave Scott's comments. I felt that they were relevant to the discussion on hand regarding the medical marijuana facilities in our city. At that time, it was tabled, and I was under the understanding that an audio review of the recording would be done and his comments would be captured into the minutes.
That's not what was said. It was said that an audit would be done and reviewed, and it was decided that many of the comments by Mr. Scott were actually not pertaining to Wall Lake, but actually rather political in context, and he talked it over and left it out. It's not part of the minutes.
So then you
Roll
can't
call
approve the
vote,
minutes?
Ambrose, Costanzo,
No.
Locke, Lublin,
Yes.
Osnick,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Ackley,
Yes.
Busted in a felony.
Motion to approve special council meeting minutes of January 11th, 2018. Recess to January 25th, 2018, and again recess to February 1st, 2018. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a
Support.
second? Thank you. Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
On page 25 of the packet, when the meeting was adjourned on the 25th, it doesn't note the reason why. I think that it's important to have for the record of what occurred at that particular time, that the meeting was adjourned because people were denied access to the meeting, an open public meeting, and that because of that, there was an issue raised by the attorney regarding that because of the violation of the Open Meeting Act, that the proceedings, anything that was decided upon,
Well, I
Could
think
be
the
overturned.
problem is, the motion was to recess to host a larger venue, and that's the way the motion was worded. We can't put into a motion what wasn't said. So
Mayor,
the motion was to yes, sir.
Mayor, what the councilman just said is incorrect. There was no violation of the Open Meetings Act. That's not why you did it. The council simply decided after the discussion to accommodate a larger crowd. They could have continued. There was no impropriety of all for violation. The lawyer called for a recess. He wanted to be able to have everybody talk, so did the council. So to imply that there was a violation, which is what the councilman just said, is inappropriate. It's wrong.
Well, plus the fact we can't change what the motion was.
We recessed it, we provided a very large venue, and everybody who wanted to attend could have attended. The day the meeting was recessed, everybody who was in
No.
the parking lot
No.
was in the building by the time it was over with. Even if they couldn't, as a matter of law, the meeting could have continued.
They had left.
City council-
They had left. This is a lie.
Please,
City council voted to recess the meeting and have it in a bigger place, and they did that. So it's simply not
No,
appropriate.
you turned them
to put
away
something in the
first.
minutes that didn't occur.
okay.
No, but they recessed the meeting, so they should have left open mic for the following meeting at the fire hall.
Yes, yes.
Yes, I have one more comment, Mayor.
Yes,
In looking at the minutes, which includes up through the February 1st meeting, I move that the special meeting minutes for the January 11th meeting, that was recessed to January 25th, then recessed to February 1st, that be tabled and that independent transcriber be provided a copy of the audio recording of the February hearing, and that the entire fully transcribed copy of that hearing be included in the minutes.
well, there's a motion on the table right now.
The minutes, as they're written, there are omissions to the minutes of what occurred at the meeting. It's not a full and complete transcribe of what was said, as I understand, and looking at my notes, that there seems to be gaps in the testimony as well as what was testified to at the February 1st meeting. And I think it's important that because of this, either we have everything in the meeting minutes, or we have nothing in the meeting minutes, but it should have a full transcription of what was said. In looking at the minutes, there's bits and pieces of what was said, but not the entire event itself. That wasn't a typical meeting. It was the removal of a duly elected official, and this document is a permanent public record, and it should include everything that was said, including the discussions that were had. I understand that it would be pretty lengthy, but because of the proceeding, it should have a full transcription done.
Are we not going to have a full video recording?
The minutes are just that. They are not a full transcription. He's talking about transcribing it and paying somebody to do that for another purpose. For the purposes of minutes, if the council decides that these are sufficient, they're sufficient. A transcription is totally different than a minute.
Correct.
A minute shows the actions taken, and they can put some things in there. He wants a full transcription and have the city pay for it. If the council wants to do that, they can do that later, but to table them, to get a full transcription is not necessary, because minutes are just that. They're selected portions and actions taken by the city council. So you can vote on it tonight, there's no requirement for transcription, and by the same token, it doesn't keep an individual from getting a copy. We have various copies of that, not only audio, but we have video, we recorded it, and anybody who wants to take that and have it transcribed, and pay to have it transcribed, because it'll be expensive, a lot of hours. So
Expensive.
they can do that, it can actually be done.
They got a fucking program that does that.
Okay. Alrighty, any further comment?
Madam Mayor, as I read the minutes that are in the council packet, it is very important, because someone who's not going to go and request an audio recording and they go to the council packet, this looks like a transcribed document that doesn't paint a full, complete picture of what transpired in 5.5 hours that day. There are gaps, and someone who was not present at the meeting would not know that without requirement.
Council, no minutes are word for word, as Mr. Witt just told you. If anybody wants to get a copy of the video, I'm sure they can request it, pay for a copy of the video, or we can do what we have to do. But the minutes do not reflect everything that is said at a council meeting. And again, if somebody wants a transcribed copy of it for whatever reasons they want it for, I'm assuming to take it further or whatever, then they can request a copy and pay for the transcribing of the minutes. It's not the city's responsibility, unless we need it for ourselves.
They need it for themselves, so they stop incriminating
Okay, roll
themselves.
call.
Costanzo.
No.
Locke. Lublin.
Yes.
Osnick.
Yes.
Robertson.
Yes.
Ambrose,
Voting.
Ackley,
Yes. Motion to approve meeting minutes of January 16th, 2018.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes for January 16th.
Is there support?
Support.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Locke, Lublin,
Yes.
Osnick,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Ambrose, Costanzo,
Yes.
Ackley.
Yes. Motion to approve special council meeting of February 6th, 2018. Motion, please.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Lublin,
Yes.
Osnick,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Ambrose, Costanzo,
Yes.
Locke, Ackley.
Yes. Okay, we are now ready for audience participation. Would the clerk please read the rules for audience participation?
There shall be one agenda item for audience participation immediately following the approval of the minutes. When a person desires to speak, he or she must first be recognized by the mayor, then stand and state his or her name and address. Individual persons shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the council unless such a period of time is extended by a majority vote of the council. No member of the audience may speak more than once without consent of a majority of the council present. No member of the audience may speak during any other part of the meeting without majority consent of the council present. Members of council may direct a question to a member of the audience after recognition by the chair, and that person may give an answer.
State that.
At the discretion of the chair, members of the audience addressing council shall come before the podium. Would you like that? That's right.
Yes, if you please put the sheet out, Rhonda, thank you. Okay, whoever wants to approach the podium, please raise your hand and I'll call on you. When you come up, sign your name and your address and then state your name and address. Lady in the front row, please.
I'm not gonna sign this because if I hear it was stolen last time, I don't know who has it.
Ma'am, I'm asking you to sign in as part of the audience participation.
No,
Read that.
I'm
Have her read
not.
that.
My name is Deborah Haas and I live in Commerce. I don't even know why I'm up here because, and I don't even know why you guys take a vote, because obviously it's all one-sided and it's all gonna be, no matter what the argument is, it's gonna be what you want. So I don't know why I'm wasting the time and money of Walled Lake taxpayers, because it's not gonna make a difference to any outcome. We all know that this council, in most part, is bought by special interests, politically biased, and dictated by the mayor. But I'd like to remind everyone about a video that was taken by me and a friend of the newly appointed Robert Robinson stepping on an opponent's sign. It was put on the news, on several news channels. It was written up in the papers. We filed, I believe, Dan Lawfer filed a complaint. I was interviewed at the spot, and so was another friend of mine. Then it was so-called investigated, like the mayor has always said, that issues are always investigated thoroughly. So I showed them the video, and it clearly showed him stomping on the sign 2 times, not once, but each side of the sign. When confronted, he denied he did it, and then he changed his mind and said he tripped. Well, one of the persons there said that there were 2 irate women who were swearing and stuff. And I believe that if that were true, the mayor would have and should have stepped in to stop the obscenities and stuff, but she said nothing. In fact, she said she didn't see anything. It could have been solved right there. The video could have not been put on. You could have just said, "We're sorry, we'll fix it, we'll put it back up." But nothing was said, so we called the newspapers. And the investigation obviously took the word of Mr. Robinson. So, the taxpayers and the residents and business owners deserve more than this. And as you can see, it didn't help that Mr. Robinson did not get reelected. I'm appalled that the mayor and this council has nominated him back to a position that was unlawfully, oh wait, didn't the attorney say that the laws don't pertain to you guys? So it was unlawfully, in my opinion, maliciously, they removed Sue Helke in a debacle hearing. That, of course, we can't get the full thing of, unless we pay for it, because you don't want to pay to have it transcribed. That took place a couple of weeks ago. So, as you know, the video is still available. I have a copy of it, so if anybody wants to see it. Thank you.
There'll be no clapping, no applauding, no booing. We're here to hear everyone. We've got a lot of people that want to talk. Thank you. Yes, sir, the hand in the back.
Please don't start the timer yet, I'm still signing in, thank you. I don't know if you are or not, I'm just making sure, sorry.
Yeah, sign that so you can incriminate them.
Yeah. They use it
Oh, that's
against
all
you.
right. I'm here to help the city workers.
Thank you for signing in, sir.
Jeff Zug, 420 Wellsboro Street. We're currently in a lawsuit with the Bald Lake School District over the CEC building. Whatever happens there, the city council and the city staff needs to think about what's gonna go in there and what's gonna anchor that place. And you gotta consider that across the street, you put in a landmark piece of property that was supposed to be like a downtown walking area. Yet the only way to connect those two pieces of property in any way, shape, or form is for a pedestrian to cross 4 lanes of Maple and the median lane to get to that, or they walk on the street on Wellsboro to access the sidewalk that's in front of Legato Point, or they actually walk what I would consider illegally with traffic along the little strip of land that is on the north side of Maple to access Legato Point. Now, in all honesty, since Maple Elementary and Twin Beach Elementary have come down, might I suggest a couple of ideas for that site, because in all honesty, it's likely coming down because the school district was allowed to put out a bid for demolition. I would contact the Wyndham Garden in Sterling Heights. More formally, it used to be known as the Best Western Sterling Heights, because it's kind of a unique location. You see, it's a hotel with an indoor water park, which would fit nicely on that property. It would actually bring the amusement park back into Walled Lake. Another suggestion would be to contact some of the local indoor sporting facilities, maybe to get a new hockey rink in town, because goodness knows if anybody has kids that play hockey, oftentimes they're playing at 11 o'clock at night or 5 o'clock in the morning. Maybe we can mix in a miniature golf course and maybe talk to the Copper Mug about bringing the batting cages indoors. Something to continue the revenue flow for this city to help fund it, help finish Legato Point, to help continue to fund staff's pension liabilities that aren't fully funded at this time because we don't actually know what they are, and FASB and the AICPA hasn't really set standards that say they have to be 100% fully funded. So we need to put something in there that's going to be a strong anchor, and we need to plan for it. Another thought is, there's a piece of property sitting down across from the beach. Might I suggest a little bed and breakfast in there, because both ideas, both the hotel and the bed and breakfast are going to bring in city room tax, which will go directly to helping us make sure we fund our liabilities, because these guys have worked hard in cutting back staff, making sure we have the revenue going forward to continue to support them, pay their pensions, pay their salaries, and make Walled Lake a destination spot instead of a drive-through spot. Because when you have a walking area with no access to it, we're going to continue to be a commute-through town, and we can't continue to afford to be a commute-through town. Thank you.
Thank you for your positive comments. Yes?
Hi, my name is Cheryl Flammer, and I live at 3557 Clark Circle in Commerce Township. I'm here tonight to represent the Banksville Barefoot Historic Home and the Lakes Area Community Foundation. I have a couple things to talk with you about tonight. First, thank you to Dennis Witt for meeting with me and Bruce Seglin, our LACF lawyer, a few weeks ago about the house. This was talked about a couple months ago, so we were very glad to have that happen. We hope that this is the beginning of a consistent, productive dialogue about finishing that house. It has always been our fervent hope as a community group to have this building used for a historical museum and for community use space. We have a lot of things to share with the community, and many of them are still in my house, so I can't wait to get them out in the public. Second, a lot of years have gone by since this project started. Back at the beginning, 1995 or so, the city leaders and the Walled Lake Schools District leaders joined together to launch this project. In fact, Walled Lake Police Officer Wilson and his family moved into that house to protect it for a couple of years. At that point, many businesses and individuals donated in-kind services or cash to this project. Tonight I have a copy of the donor list for the council members. We are very proud of and grateful to the people who were so generous and supportive at the beginning. They had faith in the vision. This list was completed many years ago, and we believe it to be accurate. Lastly, we do a lot of outreach. We are on Facebook, we have a website. I think we're still connected to the Walled Lake government site. We have been forever, so I'm pretty sure that's still true. And we also have a brochure to share whenever we can. We have a copy of that as well for you guys tonight. And as you can see, the Banksville Beer Group continues to move forward. We are hopeful that the council members will enjoy this latest effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else? Turn it back.
I'm Scott Toth, I'm from 455 Sparks Lane. I honestly was not planning to come to this meeting today, but due to the recent rains and flooding and whatnot, I did by chance pop in. I was here 2 weeks ago to discuss the site condos that are being planned to be built off of Decker, and I did voice my flooding concerns based on having another drainage pond that will be about 1,000 feet away from my property. And I voiced my concerns there, and I figured I would just be done. So I come in to my house today, and of course, East Bay's pumps have stopped working. Their detention pond is almost over the berm, and I have 2 feet of water in my backyard. A brand new shed that we just built about a year ago has an inch and a half of water in it currently right now, with all my belongings inside being ruined. So that being said, that's why I have these giant boots on and smell like a swamp, because that's my yard. Now those are the concerns that I also had with this new development, and I really hope City Council takes those items into consideration when they're reviewing this with the planning board. And also, I would really request that either our code enforcer or somebody at City Council please hold East Bay accountable for all of their oversights. I mean, this isn't the first time this has happened on this property. The prior owner and my neighbor have also mentioned that this has happened in the past, and it completely flooded out their yards, their crawl spaces, so on and so forth. Now, was I stupid for building a shed back there? Probably, but I didn't hear about that until afterwards. Should have looked at all the elevations. In any event, all this water just continues to come. The pumps aren't working. It's only a matter of time before it starts getting into my crawl space, ruining everything that's down there, along with my neighbors, across the street, aside. It's just a complete disaster, and every time I call the city code enforcer, all he has to say is, the Army Corps engineers knew what they were doing, and they installed everything properly. Well, clearly that's not the case. The pump broke 3 years ago, broke again today. That's really all I had to say, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lady in the front.
Sandra Price of Commerce, and I think it's great that we had a gentleman here talking about putting in a bed and breakfast and possibly a hotel with a water park. Unfortunately, with Walled Lake only being 2.371 miles and being the largest pot distribution in Oakland County, any God-fearing family will not come here. Thank you.
Who's next, please? And along the side.
It started being more like Redford.
Hello, City Council, John Hennahan, 1545 Leon, Walled Lake, Michigan. Permission to address the council?
Yes.
Okay. So there was a planning commission meeting 1 week ago on February 13th, 2018 for a development by Schaefer Development, coming up with the conceptual plan for a development off of Decker, Leon, Oak Grove, North Street, North Ave. There was a very large turnout for that particular meeting. The room was more crowded than it was even, or it is even today. The people that live within 300 feet of the project were sent out letters advising them that this would be discussed at a planning meeting. They weren't able to come to a decision at that meeting, and they're going to have another meeting. I suggest that the council approve that this development goes beyond the 300 feet required of informing the residents, because obviously this is the size of this development. To get that big of a turnout at a planning committee meeting means that there's a lot of people that are concerned, and one of them was even here addressing the water issues that's going on there. So in regards to that, I got some signatures that were gathered of people that opposed the plan, and at the city council, or at the planning meeting, that signatures were refused, but they requested that they were turned into the city clerk, which they were done the next day on the 14th of February, and there was a stamped receipt. So I'm not sure as you as council, because this particular plan is at the planning stage, whether it's come before you yet.
No, it has not. And
Okay.
it won't until it follows the proper procedure.
Till it reaches that stage.
Correct.
So are you at least made aware by the city clerk that there was a petition turned in?
Yes.
Okay, so you are aware of that. So this is something that's going to come up, and it will be before you at a certain phase, unless they turn it down at the planning committee stage.
That is correct.
That's correct. So I just wanted to make sure that it was put into the city council meeting, that this is going to come before the board. It is something that the citizens of Walled Lake are very concerned about. So we have to make sure that we act thoroughly on this. And there's a lot of talk about East Bay. And there's even more tonight with the flooding, and East Bay has not been completed, so that's one of the concerns, that there may not be a need for this type of development to happen. They tabled the meeting and said that they would inform all of us about another meeting, which they may or may not have to do. I don't know all the legalities behind that. They had one meeting where it was an open meeting. Now that they have future meetings, I don't know if the city is required to inform the residents, but just like when you're building a building and you have to meet the minimum building standards, I would think that we should go beyond as a city in informing our citizens about this project that's something that large. So the question is, did you receive it? You did. The concerns were the water in East Bay, a traffic study that needs to go on. They only mentioned Leon. I would think all the adjacent streets would get studied for traffic, of how much this will affect that. There's also a park resolution on today. I heard that my meeting was up. I'm almost done. I'm just summarizing the final thing. There's a park resolution on today's meeting docket near the end. I'm not sure what that is, but it was brought up at the master plan, at that planning meeting, that particular neighborhood, which in our master plan is considered east downtown, does not have any parks currently, and we are underparked by about 30 acres for our 7,000 residents. So one of the proposals was to turn that property into a park for the concern of all the wildlife that we have and the type of city we've been for a long time.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
could I ask the council to give him a minute or two more? I think a discussion with this young man here, who seems to be really involved, help on this project.
Sure. Does council have a problem?
If we can do that, because we're going to need somebody who's in the community. First of all, by virtue of my role as manager, I sit on the planning committee. I was not able to attend. I had a daughter in middle school, and she had a concert. Sure. So I had to go to the concert.
Right.
First meeting I missed since I've been here in 8 years. That was just a concept. It virtually was a drawing and nothing more. I can tell you, as the planning commissioner sitting on that, I would have voted no if that was the proposal. I think a whole lot of people would vote no. It's like the other stuff that we've had. Let's not get out on this and believe that that's going to go. A lot of work has to be done. We have to go through as a city to let that the developer and the owners of the property get their due process as well. It seems to be wrong-headed at this point. Doesn't mean they can't get it. We're going to need people in the community to say to them, knock on the doors, hey, you need to get over there and say what you need to say. Let's not wait. We'll try to expand the notice requirement, but they're going to come back. They're going to come back to the Planning Commission and maybe try to get some idea what they need to do to get it passed. The law requires that the City Council act, no matter what the Planning Commission does. It's going to be a planned unit development, meaning the City Council has the final say. So nothing gets done until they vote here. The Planning Commission can only say, let's change things. I think there's some problems with its exiting on Leon and different stuff. The drainage is a whole other issue that we need to learn from the East Bay issues. So we're going to need somebody in the community. If you signed in, if I can have my people contact you to keep that going so that we don't have a shortage of notice. You know, we post it everywhere. It's been posted everywhere. We send out as required by law. We put it on the website. We put it on our marquee, stuff like that. We can expand that perhaps to a larger population, but I think the whole population of Wall Lake is concerned about that. So if you can be the front guy in the field out there where you're at and work with my folks, I would appreciate it because we need that input. Otherwise, we have this fight and we're down to the wire and we end up in a lawsuit or we don't, but we need to do it the right way or not do it at all. So if you're this involved, I think you're the guy to help us over on in terms of keeping the people informed. So.
It sounds like, Councilman, you're asking me to be a liaison between the council and the neighborhood and the people of Wall Lake.
No, I'm not a council member. I'm administration.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I apologize. I'm the city manager. My name is Dennis Witt. And I'm asking to be my liaison or our liaison to make sure the concerns are getting to us so we get it to the planning commission and or the council members. Just like you did with the petition. They know the petition exists, but we don't know the opinion of all 78 people on this side. 78, right? 70-some people signed the petition. So we know that 78 people are concerned about that, including you.
Right. So to answer your question,
yes,
city manager, yes, I'm willing to be a person that's deeply involved in this. A couple other notes then, since you brought me still to the microphone. You talk about the city website. There was a person that requested on the city website some information regarding that. I believe that was on the Facebook website, but I'm not sure exactly which site it was. Nobody answered that person within, I think it was given a week ahead of time that they put on there. So it was also brought up at the meeting that there's a real problem within the city of the city notifying the residents on different things. One of the things that was brought up was when we had a boil water alert within the last 6 months, when we had a water main break, and that most of the people got their information from the news. So as a city, I would think you're responsible for making sure we have safe water since we pay the water bill through the city, and that's another concern. So it's not just this East Bay development, but we could use this as a stepping forward in deciding that certain times we need to step up how many people are noticed, because some of the people on my signatures were just people that walk the streets and use it as a park, and there's concern about traffic and other areas. So it's not just the people that live on Leon or live on Oak Grove that back up to the project. It's people that are all around it that are affected by any development that's decided. And then the developer, of course, he's going to try to sell you on his idea, which I realize he has that opportunity to do that as the landowner. Although him being the landowner is under, he admitted at the meeting that he doesn't actually own the land yet. It's all under a deal that if the city approves this, then yeah, he'll go ahead and buy that property, but if he doesn't, he backs off. And then, I've lived in this great community for almost 30 years. This is the third time I've fought off a development as part of those properties. Each time they've had more properties. So the first time it was one house, and one house being lot split into 3. Then it was about another piece of property, then it was tried for 7. So on 2 times, people have tried to develop this property, and some of you may have been on the commission then and others have not, or might have been in a different position, but there is a history within the community of saying this is not particularly good for Walled Lake, and that we need to look at our master plan and see that document, and I'm not sure what the cost of that document was, whether it was $30,000, $50,000, $100,000. It was developed and it's put on a website to tell the people what the plan is of the city, and that's where I get that information about the city being underparked. And it also says that the city of Walled Lake should refurbish old houses as opposed to tear them down and to have new development, that there's a lot of neighborhood integrity that we have, and that Walled Lake is the neighborhoods, the 6 neighborhoods. It could have been 7, it could have been 10, but the way that master plan is drawn out, it's 6 neighborhoods, and all of us matter, and we come to city council meetings, and we live here, and we go to church here, and we do whatever we do as this community, but most of us have lived here for more than 10 years. That shows you that this is a community that people like to stay in, and there's a reason why people like to stay here. And it's all of what Walled Lake is, and a lot of it is the history of Walled Lake. And somebody compared it to Novi, and there's a big groan through the audience, and I get that it's our next door neighbor, but we do like to differentiate ourselves from the megapolis of a city that Novi is, in our little small town at 2.7 square miles, where at least us, the people, and you, the city council, have the opportunity to make the choices that are best for our community, that Novi doesn't have a choice in and Commerce doesn't have a choice in. This is our city. It's been our city since, I think, 1954. There's a lot of history here, going back to the Indians. And to become a concrete jungle like everybody else and take away all our parks and different things, sometimes we have to look ahead, and that's your job, is to say, where do we want to be in 2035? What do we want this community to look like? Because we're going to be a bought-out community according to that master plan. There's not going to be any vacant property left. There's like 90 acres left or something. So it's really upon you to make tough choices sometimes. And I get a lot of people don't want, not in my backyard, I don't want this to happen. And legally, they don't always have the reasons for it, but sometimes you have within your control and within what's available from state government, city government, national government, to change some areas to parks, designated as a park, save this wildlife in this particular instance. And you can do that with money that's through grants and other things, so it's not $1 million to the city to decide to turn down a development that could be bringing, $120,000 a year in as revenue on taxes on some new homes. So I think that needs to be looked at, and also the zoning on it, exactly who has the say on how that is zoned, because part of it, they're looking at the cottages that are down by the lake, and they have 1,200 square feet, and they're able to put a house on that, and that's zoned for single-family homes. But that end of the street was set up as estate acres, and they're all real large developments. So do we want to take one of those last parcels of our city and cram 44 houses into it because somebody says that, oh, the zoning says we can make them the size of the cottages, even though they're obviously not cottages? There's a lot of other issues, so I don't want to get too far into it. But there is a lot of opposition to you, and I wanted to make sure that I came to this meeting that it is going to be on your agenda. And I know you have to look ahead, and that you have a lot of constituents, and you can talk to the people that live in the city and the businesses and decide if this is something they want, within a walking community, and how we want to change how Walled Lake is, and a little bit goes with this as well.
I want to thank you. I know there's 3 of us that were actually either on council or planning commission when East Bay went in. We know there was mistakes made. We know there was things we weren't told. And I hope we have learned by our mistakes and not make the same ones over again. I think in the last couple of years, you saw that the council did fight the development down on the lake shore, and we were successful. It wasn't a good development. The people didn't want it. So we do try to listen to the people and do what's best. But I have to commend you for coming out tonight. You're well-spoken, and you're speaking what the people in that area seem to feel. So I thank you for coming out, and we certainly will be on top of this development.
And just for the record, then my phone number, address, and email address are available on that petition. If Dennis wants to get a hold of me or anybody else within the city council that have questions. And I would also recommend that you maybe try to contact the developer if you're allowed to, just to see that his mailbox is full And a lot of things that they said he was gonna do, like create a meeting with people and come around and be concerned with the citizens, he didn't do any of that beforehand. He had an opportunity to do it. I did it. So, you know, there's a lot of question about somebody that's not part of our city that comes in and wants to develop or make his share of the puzzle or pie or whatever you want to call it, and is going to be gone. And we have to decide how we want this city
Okay.
after the
Thank you.
developers are gone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm really glad that
No,
I
that's
asked
great.
to speak. He's actually saying what needs to be said.
You need to run for council. Get some of these guys.
The lady in the back.
You would be very good.
The paper's gone.
Back, I'm sorry. That's not a lady. I see that now. The white was glaring and I couldn't see. The gentleman in the blue.
The paper's gone.
And I'm sorry.
It's possible. Yeah, I sure did.
Oh, you better call everybody.
Thank you. Sign and cheat. There's no real meeting, is there?
Oh. I got that on tape.
Thank you. My name is Mark Toth. I'm the father of the gentleman with the underground swimming pool. I am by trade a corporate real estate broker, and I appreciate the candor of this council by saying how many mistakes can be made. Because this is a bedroom community, which I've enjoyed living here. I live on 111 Quinnip. I've been here 6 years. And I can understand, believe me, from a lot of experience of high-pressure developers. That being said, that gentleman over there made his point beautifully. What I would like to ask is it would be imprudent for the council and us as citizens if we can't police our own previous actions. Now, I'm very attuned with the EPA and the DEQ. On that property where my son lives in the corner is an absolute cesspool. We have called, we've been ignored, there's tires, there's disease-ridden, mosquitoes, everything. The people behind it don't seem to do anything. We have called, my son, myself, to say, have a building inspector go out there for these failed pumps, the retention pond at his property is now underwater. Nothing gets done. That is the problem. There's no policing. I appreciate the fact your building inspector's part-time. I've seen him do some things that, personally, he'd be in the parking lot with a cardboard box looking for a new job. But that's not my decision. I'm more concerned with my property now is starting to flood, is when we call somebody, it's like we're dancing in the wind. Nothing gets done. I've recommended my son, forget it, call Lansing, call the DEQ, call the EPA. Everything in the corner of that property is absolutely wrong. Rotten car tires, etc. Send somebody out and look at it. The pumps aren't working. The Corps of Engineers are not Moses. They set that whole grade wrong. And they should be held accountable, and the people in East Bay who are taking in a considerable amount of money in fees to maintain that property. There's a wall falling down there. I brought it up to this building inspector. It was like, I thought he was going to ask me if I wanted fries with that. But get somebody out there that has some authority to stop this. It's ruining not just my son's, it's ruining, there's 5 or 6 other properties there. And some of these people are elderly living down that street too. And they don't know what to do. Just get somebody out there to look at it and do something. If this was a television program where he got me $5 million for falling down on my own face, this is a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Do it.
Thank you all very, very much.
Very good.
Yeah, we're toilet paper.
Yeah.
Why don't you just leave it there for right now? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ruth Ann Stice. I live at 541 Winwood Circle.
Can you push that down a little bit so I can hear
Sure.
you better? Thank you.
Okay, I'm at 541 Winwood Circle, and I just want to piggyback on the rest of the communities that are flooded, and especially now more that we got 3+ inches of rain in the last day or so. At the Winwood condos in the back, all of East Bay's water is pushed over into the Winwood side, which we're kind of already on a wetland area that is saturated with water. So again, if we have 44 more homes going just to the side of East Bay, when I talked to the developer, he said that he was going to have special underground sewage system to have the runoff water go through down to Walled Lake, which everyone knows that that is our gem of our city. So unless he has some special filtration systems that is going to take out salt and the oil, whatever comes out on the grass.
Impurities in general.
Exactly. It would just ruin everything more than we already have. Plus the traffic. Decker Road needs major repairs to it. East Lake Drive needs repairs. And I would like to see more transparency with communications with the city, with the public, because, you know, when I talked to the planning manager, Mike, that night, he didn't seem to know anything about what was going on at the Easter Seals building. He didn't know anything that was going on down at the Walled Lake with the new